Hello, I am John Najarian, and Rebelcon 2022 is almost here. We do have a virtual pass. The virtual pass gives you full access to everything, all the streams, the live trading sessions, all of our fabulous keynote speakers. So to learn more about what's going on at Rebelcon 2022, whether you're in person or virtual, check out marketrebellion.com/Dallas. Bang!
He did it again.
Back, Pete.
He did it again, Jared.
Too many people said, and then yeah, they said, "Screw Jarrett." we like the clap. The clap
nice.
Nice.
You know what I should do, Jarrett, is I should get some lights that turn on when you do that. Folks, welcome back. Jared is, of course, our producer. I'm John Najarian, Pete Najarian, and we're heading into the macro minute, Pete, because that's all we do on the Rebel Edge. We don't waste your time. We give you 1 minute of macro because that's all it's worth.
That's all.
If you're calling in for trades and things that are going to move with stocks, that's what you want to hear about. You don't want to hear about macro. But Pete, I saw that Neil Kashkari, who's a guy in your hometown, up there in Minneapolis, he's saying, I like the market reaction to Jay Powell's statement. He must love it today.
Yeah, it's really come over pretty well. I think, John, the timing and the use of the word pain ever to describe something, and when you're coming from that side of things, we're seeing the reaction. It's just, we looked at it Friday down 1,000. You looked at it again Monday, continues to the downside. And today we have flipped so fast, it was unbelievable. But that's enough about the macro. Let's get out of here. I mean, a minute's too long.
A minute might be too long. Let's talk about Best Buy, Pete.
Yeah.
Because I got a whole bunch of stocks that start with the letter B, and Best Buy was at the top of my list today. They reported earnings that were almost 30 cents better than expectations, Pete.
Yeah.
The revenue was also beating on expectations. And they said, there's a lot of promotions to get this done, but they are getting it done, and shares are reacting positively on an ugly day in the market.
Yep, I like this stock, John. I've owned this stock. I talked about it on TV a while back. The fact that I had entered into this stock, it got too cheap. The reality is we all understand that whether it's Target or Walmart or Best Buy or whoever, they're going to go through these ups and downs. But, when you look at Best Buy and you look at the balance sheet, you just say, you know what, how do you beat this? They trade at single digit PE. They do just about everything right. The comp sales were down a little bit, but they crushed it on the revenue. Well, the revenue they beat. They crushed it on the earnings for sure. And the stock traded all the way up to 79. But because of the backside of this market right now, getting hit in the backside, it's pulled back a little bit. But I think that was a really good report that they were able to deliver, John. And I think that's why we had that initial spike, and had not had the macro side of things pulling it down, I think we'd see Best Buy somewhere between 77 and $80 right now.
Right. I mean, for it to open at 75, Pete, and then run to 79 and then give it all back like that, when Taiwan started shooting down drones and things, I guess that was part of it. But still a great report out of these guys, and very impressive, I thought. Also impressive, Pete, was Buffett's timing getting into this BYD. It's an EV maker in China. He's been in it for, God, I want to say, Pete, at least 7 years, because I bought in when he bought in, and I've been getting out, and I had to call up our broker to make sure I'm out of the rest, because Buffett started selling today. And if Buffett's getting out, his timing was excellent on entry. I don't want to stick around if he's getting out.
It's his birthday today too, John. So, there's a lot of different things going on. So happy birthday to the Oracle.
92.
Oracle. Yeah, 92 years young. But the guy, you've got to love the guy. You got to listen to what he has to say, why he says it, what they're looking at, whether it's Occidental or in this case with this EV maker, the third largest EV maker in the world, John, when you look at their deliveries. So yeah, I totally get it. I'm not in this name. It's a 5-digit name, which makes it or five initial name. So it makes it a little bit tougher sometimes, but I do like it. I think that you did a great job getting in there and being a part of that whole thing. I think it'll be just as smart to get out, especially if he's thinking about selling any more, John, which it sounds like he might. I think it's probably not a bad exit point right now to get the heck out of there and say, you know what, this has been great, but see you later.
Yeah, he's not exactly Ryan Cohen, the guy that, of course, famously got into Bed Bath and Beyond on the cheap and then all at once exited the whole position. But if Buffett's saying maybe it's time to peel some off, I think it's time for me to be bye-bye.
Yeah.
Pete, what do you think about Patterson Energy? Would you be buy, or would you be bye-bye in Patterson Energy?
Yeah, the one concern that I have about this name, John, and I think everybody who understands a lot of the energy names understands what I'm saying, is they've got an amazing amount of debt. Now, it's okay because within this industry, 40% debt, that's kind of what the norm is oftentimes, but they're closer to a 56%. And that's a pretty big number. And it's going to take some time. They've had a hard time making money, but they're in the right place, right time. These drillers are always kind of interesting, but I like this name. Will I trade it? 100%. Anytime we see any of those options that are trading in here, John, just like basically all the others within the space, when we see the unusual option activity jumping into any of those names, APA or you name it, we're going to jump. But I think in terms of the stock itself from a longer term, I'm just not ready to be a big long holder. How about you?
Well, it kind of double topped, Pete, at about 1650-ish,
Yeah.
which is only about $1.50 or $1.60 higher than where it is right now. That was a double top, meaning that, it hit and bounced off, and then it hit again and bounced off. So what I'm looking for, Pete, is if I could get it, for instance, a buck lower than where it is right now, which, you and I know there's ways to do that. I could be selling puts down there at that, 1350-ish level. That would be something that I'd be willing to do. I'm not really a buyer right here, even though I'm a believer in the space. I'm not really a buyer right here at about $15, Pete.
And that name, John, started off the year at 9, ran all the way to 20, and then pulled back to where we are right now, call it 15, somewhere very close to that level. So it's had a great run. Can it pull back a little bit more and get a little bit more interesting? Absolutely. So I think that's why, maybe to your point, maybe it's just a pause right now, but certainly keeping a nice close eye on it.
What about, Pete, this solar play? I mean, First Solar, FSLR, biggest solar producer in the United States. Obviously, there's always concerns that China would dump things here because they make stuff cheaper and they'd sell stuff here cheaper. But China's had this lockdown issue, so that's been good for them. And also the so-called, what is it, Inflation Reduction Act or something like that.
The money
that
grab
actually is an energy play. That's good for them. The energy, they're going to be spending over $1 billion on new facilities. And that's good because they're spending it here, Pete, not over in China.
Yeah, I think that is a big deal, John. And the fact that they can spend that $1 billion on that newest thing that they want to do to expand things, as well as already just adding I think it's like 145 million or something like that they want to add to even more of what they've already got presently in Ohio. So there's a lot of reasons why this is a pretty interesting one. Plus the fact that they have been the one very profitable over time of the solar plays. They've done a really pretty good job, I think, navigating through the markets and doing the right thing. But, this was a $74 stock, John, before the announcement of all that money that all of a sudden comes gushing from the government towards all these guys. And today it hit up above 130. So it's been on an unbelievable pace to the upside. They are going to be expanding. They are going to become even bigger and badder, I think, in the future. And it certainly hasn't hurt that the government's thrown a lot of money their way.
Yep. But as you say, Pete, the fact that cap X, which is what a lot of us would refer to that as, those expenses, they need revenue to match up against those expenses. They've, as you said, accurately already put on 50+ bucks
Yeah.
from where they were, almost $60.
It's not bad.
So I'm taking a wait and see on this one as far as adding any more to it.
Yeah.
All right, Pete, let's get to a little unusual option activity. We know people love to tune in for that.
Yeah.
And today I've got one that I think you'll appreciate. SPY, SPY, because they were buying like crazy last week, Pete, on Friday when the SPY was 408. A week earlier, they were buying puts when it was at 426. Well, today at 398, they came in and bought 18,000 puts at the 379 strike. So they're just rolling down, Pete, down, which means, again, for people that don't trade options, they're betting that this goes lower. They either want A, protection, or B, that they're an outright short bet on the market. And that's the way I'm playing it, Pete, is that Neil Kashkari and some of these other Fed officials, they're going to get what they want because they're delivering the pain. And that means we're going to go lower in the markets.
Yeah. That's an interesting one, John. And it is more on the macro side, but we're not totally against macro, especially if it's about trading the macro, not just talking about it and flapping the gums, but actually a reason why we would talk about it today. So I think that's great that you highlighted all this put buying that's been there and continues to be there. And they've been making money and still rolling in there. I got one for you that we talk about all the time. And speaking of the Oracle, he's a pretty big buyer. He's a big Apple guy, right, John? I mean, he's taking a bite out of Apple and he loves it. Well, Apple is pretty interesting because as the stock kind of got cascading to the downside from where it was not too terribly long ago, we're back underneath 160. As a matter of fact, at the time when the stock was trading about 158.50, John, we had some serious buyers of upside. But just to show you how people are looking for that second half play and maybe even pushing out a little bit further before things start to move. In Apple, in this case, they bought 20,000 of the December calls. And these are the December 160 calls that they're buying. They were $11 up to about $12. Here's the other interesting part of this trade. A huge 16,000 print in one print of buyers. So it was 20,000 in total, but 16,000 came in one print. So in other words, this isn't a flood of 100 lots that are coming in there. This is some monster trades that are coming in there. And I think that's always worth pointing out. This is a lower end part of where Apple has been recently. It's pretty interesting. I like it. I think it makes a lot of sense. And I like the side of it that they've decided to go out in time, John, to buy a little bit of time for this to play out. And this thing certainly could be pretty interesting if we get towards the end of the year and things start to recover a bit.
Yeah, and I think they're buying it because, like you say, Pete, we're at a 150-ish level where the stock has found support in the past, and they're saying, I want a lot of time to be right, and 1.6 million share equivalent, that's what 16,000 options are, folks, because every option's for 100 shares of stock. That's a big purchase. All right, Pete, take us on over into sports for a minute.
All right, we're going to jump into the sports, and we've got two like we always do, but I think the first one's pretty daggone interesting and very topical because we talk about money all the time, right? Well, this is a lot about money as well as about the players themselves. The San Francisco 49ers, they were just here in Minnesota. You know who wasn't here? He didn't even make the trip? Jimmy Garoppolo. He was back in San Francisco still recovering from a shoulder surgery, and he's actually been recovering very, very well. The odd part is, John, nobody wants to pay him the money that he's demanding to get, right? And part of that is the contract that he's had with the San Francisco 49ers. About 24, actually closer to $25 million contract. So nobody's jumped. So you know who decided to jump, but they did it for the right reasons? The San Francisco 49ers. They've got Trey Lance. They love him. They probably don't think he's quite ready yet, which is why I think they made this move. But they were able to renegotiate the contract with him today or the other day and down to $6.5 million, John, but it's all guaranteed, but $6.5 million from $25 million. That's a biggie. And that really does make things really pretty interesting. Sorry, I got somebody who's not realizing that you and I are on right now. But John, with some of the incentives he's got, $16 million is what he could get this year. Even though he's got a $6.5 million guarantee, he could get all the way up to $16 million if he plays a lot. All the incentives they put in there, a far cry from the $24 or $5 million that they were looking at.
Yeah, and the kid has performed like crazy, Pete.
Yeah.
I know some haters out there are just like the haters of Cousins, and for the most part, both of those types are wrong. These are talented kids
Yeah.
or young men, and I think that since San Francisco needs a little something to
Mhm.
push this Lance along, I think
Mhm.
this is a good push and a good mentor for him. So I'd be all for it, Pete. I think it's money well spent.
And with Debo Samuel at wide receiver and running back and everything we talked about yesterday, why I think he should have been in that top 10, John, there's a lot of players on the offensive and defensive side. It's why the Niners are so excited about the fact that maybe the Super Bowl's in front of them. The next one we've got is Serena Williams. Now, she is in the twilight of her career. She's only
Mhm.
been playing
Clearly.
27 years, John. She's only been dominating for pretty much 27 years. She
Yeah.
started off wearing braces when she first was playing in her first US Open that she won in 1999. We weren't even in the
Wow.
2000s yet. So the woman has been around for a long period of time. She was in braces early on when she started. Now she's got her own children, or at least one child. So it's been an amazing career. She's still unbelievable. Even now, she's unbelievable. But she's chosen to step away. Is she the GOAT, John? And what do you think about Serena and her career?
Absolutely, Pete. I mean,
Yeah.
Billie Jean King, great.
Yep.
Steffi Graf, great.
Yeah.
There's lots of great ones out there, but to have a career over this length of time, and to be basically the standard bearer for her sport as
Yeah.
long as she has been, and to be just such a beast of an athlete.
Yeah.
By the way, Pete, she's married to an Armenian guy,
Yes, she is.
Ohanian.
Ohanian. Yeah.
Yeah, the guy that started Reddit, the
Yep.
co-founder, I guess, of Reddit. And I wish her all the continued success in whatever she does next. And I hope that at the U.S. Open, I'd love to see her go out on top, Pete. I don't
Yep.
think it's in the cards, but I'm not a big fan of the U.S. Open this year anyway, because Novak Djokovic can't play in it because he's not vaccinated. Are you kidding me? One of the best athletes in the world, best conditioned, and we're still putting up this BS. So that's what I'd like. Other than Serena, I
Yep.
will not watch a single second of this because I think the U.S. Open really just shot themselves in the foot with that stance.
John, the one other thing I got to mention about Serena and that people have to understand is you and I played football. Well, there's
Mhm.
22 guys, on the team, offense and defense. You got 22 guys out there, right? So, and then the rest of the team. But when you're a tennis player, it's one of those few sports. There's a couple out there, but it's you against the world. It's the mental side of things, and you don't really have anybody else to lean on. Your coach is somewhere up in the stands. You're down there on the court, and you're playing against somebody else who's obviously unbelievable. Her dominance for so long, the fact that she was so dominating, she definitely is a dynasty type player. It's
Yep.
absolutely amazing. And I, obviously the movies are out there and everything else, but it really is an impressive thing. And I think it was really important that we touch on that because she is an unbelievable athlete mentally and physically, and what she did in her career. Oh, by the way, 4 gold medals in the Olympics on top of everything else. I mean, she did just about everything you'd ever want.
Yep. Well, speaking of what you want, we do bring 3 times a week Rebel Edge at 1 p.m. Eastern time, folks. So we take the day off tomorrow. We will be back on Thursday with the Rebel Edge at 1 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you then.